Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Liv and we are finally doing my February wrap up. It is like way past the middle of March. I have taken too long to do this. I was sick for like a week and a half, and then after I felt better, I had just no voice. But we're finally gonna do this. My voice still might go, so I have some tea and we're gonna do it as fast as we can. It is gloomy and overcast outside, so this is the best that the lighting is gonna get, but unfortunately this is the only day I have home alone to film, so we're gonna go for it. And let's just jump right on into my February stats. So in February, wasn't great, but was still better than January. I read 7 books and 1,822 pages. Of those books, I read 5 horror books, 1 sci-fi, and 1 fantasy book. 5 were novels and 2 were novellas. I read 4 authors that I had read before, and 3 authors were new to me. My average rating in February was a 3.7, which is pretty good. I had 1 3-star. I had 4 3.5 stars, 1 4-star, and 1 5-star. Of those books, 2 were from the library, 1 was purchased in 2025, and 4 were from my backlist TBR. Unfortunately, though, I started the year with 269 books on my TBR, and I ended February with 267. So we did decrease it, but not as much as I would have liked. I did go a little hard with the February Book of the Month books. Just, they had the free book of the year. I had a credit. I got 3 books. I got my aardvark. We're working on it. I think those are all the stats I have to tell you, so let's just hop right on into the books. We're just gonna go in the order that I read them. So the first book I read this month was Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell. This book, we are following Prince Kiem and Prince Janan, unsure how we say that. This is pitched as like a sci-fi version of Red, White, and Royal Blue. I haven't read it, so I cannot confirm or deny, but my coworker who told me to read it, he does fully believe that, and he loves Red, White, and Royal Blue. We are following these 2 characters as they are really just quickly forced into a political marriage. In this world, Cat is like the leading planetary government, I guess, governing faction in this galaxy. I don't read a lot of sci-fi. And every 7 or so years, their treaty needs to be re-signed. Their treaty is upheld mostly by political marriages. And Janine was married to a man called Tam, who dies 7 weeks before this treaty needs to be signed. So he quickly gets married to Kiem. And soon we find out that maybe Tam didn't die naturally and it was a murder. And for some reason, his widow is a suspect. And so we're following these 2 as they're trying to solve this murder, prove someone's innocence, and very, very slowly starting to catch feelings for each other. All while trying to save an intergalactic treaty. It was really fun. I had a great time. It was very, once I got past, the first chapter, it was a very, soft sci-fi-esque story, and it was very easy for me to envision everything that was happening and the different places they were visiting. So the author did a really, really great job with that. So I gave this book 3.5 stars. I really enjoyed it. For me, if you are gonna give me a book that is over 600 pages that is following a story like this, but then still has such amazing side characters, and we're already doing more than 1 POV. I just want a little more of the side characters. I get I was supposed to be following this love story, but I just wanted a little bit more out of all the side characters that were introduced. And I could see maybe if we were gonna continue the series and follow them, that would be great. But I believe this second book is other side of the galaxy, completely new characters, so that's not really the vibe. And mostly I just wanted more Belle. She was amazing, and I just wanted more from her. I wanted to read from her perspective, but it was a really, really fun time, and I would maybe consider reading the second one in the future. Who's to say? The next 5 books are all books. I don't want to admit this because you're gonna understand truly how little I actually read in February. The next 5 books I all read during my 24-hour readathon that I did with my roommate. I read the first one I got also from the library, which was The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Nevo. I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars as well, and it could be higher in the future if I reread it, because I did not read a synopsis at all. I just knew I wanted to read Nevo, and I spent like the first half of it very confused as to what I was reading. In this little novella, we are following a story about an empress who has been sent to go into a political marriage again and marry a man, and quickly after a few years is kind of just tossed aside from this man and exiled. And the story is told through a bard years later, after no one has seen this woman again, who is traveling to this kingdom to see the next empress be sworn in. And she meets Rabbit, who was this old empress. I think her name was Einho, but it was her handmaiden. And she is kind of recounting stories of her time working with this handmaiden and following her into exile and following her as she tries to fight for women in this world. It's a very fuck the patriarchy book. It was really, really good. And that's really all I can say about it, because like I said, I think I do need a reread to fully grasp what was going on, but I did enjoy the time I spent reading it. Okay, I already feel like my voice is going. Let's speed this up. The next book I read during my 24-hour readathon was We Can Never Leave This Place by Eric LaRocca. This had just been sitting on my TBR for a little bit, and I needed to get to it. It was short. Oh, I had also been trying to complete Jante's Inferno, so all of these were just to follow prompts. I wanted to see how many prompts I could get through in the 24 hours. This book, very short, so I'm gonna give you a short synopsis. But we're following this mother and daughter in kind of this 21st century set, but post-apocalyptic world. And her father dies in the beginning of the book, and her mother suddenly invites this stranger into their house, saying that he will protect them, even though the rest of her town is evacuating. And the mom is like, we're not going with them, but the stranger is here and he's gonna help us. It was this very kind of like macabre, fairy tale, grotesque story, and I really wanted to enjoy it more than I did. There were some really gross stuff that I did enjoy, but overall I did give this 3 stars. Maybe I would reread it again in the future when I'm not like trying to race through it. I did feel like there were like some fun metaphors and stuff, but like for me this was maybe just a book we could chalk up to like I didn't get it, wasn't for me. I understand why a lot of people love this one, but just yeah, it was just like I didn't feel much reading it except excitement that I finished it. So this was a 3-star overall. There's a man looking at me outside. That's awkward. Take a sip of my tea and talk to my camera. Okay, the next book I read during our 24-hour readathon was one that has been sitting on my shelf, I believe, since like 2022, so I was happy to get to it. It's Run on Red by Noelle W. Healy? Healy. I don't know. Should have looked it up. In this book, we are following Lauren and Olivia as they are heading to like this bonfire out in the forest up in the hills from the college that they're at. And on their way up, they are being tailed like very close by these headlights. They think it's someone who just wants to pass them. They let them pass. Suddenly they're waiting up the road and they start following them again, and it really quickly turns into this game of cat and mouse and trying to catch these women trying to figure out who these men in this truck are and what they want with them. This one was really quick to read through because like every chapter was maybe like 3 or 4 pages. They all pretty much ended on a cliffhanger, and like you just as much as these women wanted to figure out what exactly was happening and why these men were after them. I did give it a 3.5 stars. I didn't fully love it. I thought one thing was really, really obvious, and then I thought that there was one like storyline that was introduced that like the author didn't fully follow through on. Like we could have done something really, really cool, and it was just a missed opportunity in my opinion. I also said this in the vlog where I read it, but it really reminded me of this Korean film, I Saw the Devil. Very, very different vibes of characters in the 2 stories, but like the cat and mouse aspect I really thought was similar to the movie. Okay, 3 more books. My throat only hurts a little. Okay, the next book I picked up during this 24-hour readathon, we had maybe had like 8 hours left, and like the sleep deprived reading of this just really did it for me, and that was Wake Up and Open Your Eyes by Clay McLeod Chapman. Incredible. This was the new release I read this month, and in this book we are following our main character as he's been really slowly over the past few years, after his parents have retired, like losing them to alt-right news sites, and is being so confused as to like where this side of like his parents' personality has come from. Like, he is married to a black woman, he was not raised like this, but suddenly they're really slipping. And suddenly, after his mom keeps calling him and telling him he needs to prepare for the Great Awakening, it's coming, she stops answering phone calls, and his brother stops answering phone calls. So he makes the drive from Brooklyn to Virginia to go check up on his parents, and he finds the house a mess, food spoiled everywhere, and his parents just in a trance watching this news in different rooms. This book, guys, that absolutely incredible. I gave it 5 stars. I was obsessed. I thought the way that Clay McLeod Chapman decided to pace this book and the 3 parts he told the story in were just phenomenal. So the first part is like phase 1, and it's following our main character as he goes to like check on his parents and see what's wrong. The second part is phase 2, where we go back in time and we follow a different set of our main character's family members as they are kind of recruited into what exactly is happening in this Great Awakening. And then the third phase, we go back to how the first part had ended and seeing what is happening all across the world in this story. Oh my god. First of all, there's like a video of me crying because it was supposed to be like laughing crying, but I was so tired and just so like there was no laughing. I was just like, oh my god, what did I just read? And part of that was definitely the audiobook narrator. I think he did a phenomenal job because I was reading it with the audiobook. So I have the audiobook turned up to as fast as my eyes are moving. And within like the first 60 pages of this, our main character gets into a bit of a really traumatic event when he's facing his parents, and just the audiobook narrator's tension and anxiety while reading it like really heightened my tension and anxiety, and I thought he did a phenomenal job just with that part, and it was so incredible. I do really recommend reading reviews for this book before you hop into it. I really think Katie Coulson's is incredible. Maybe I'll pop it on the screen here. There is definitely some extreme horror in this, and like definitely know that going into this. Definitely read some reviews before you decide if you're going to pick it up, if this book is going to be for you. Really what got me was the ending. I thought it was such an excellent choice on the author's part, and just really stellar book. I'm so happy I picked it up. The last book I picked up during our 24-hour readathon, I finished it maybe with like an hour left, was Guillotine by Delilah S. Dawson. I read Bloom last year and I absolutely ate it up, so I knew I wanted to read another one of her books, and this came out toward the end of last year and I immediately picked it up. In this book, we're following our main character. She is in school. She's really broke, and she is trying to just find her way in the world and make a name for herself in the fashion industry. In the beginning of this book, she meets this boy at a bar, and he's really pushy, kind of gross, like pretty much bullies her until she gives him her phone number. But then she realizes that this kid is the son of a woman who's like an executive for this amazing fashion magazine, and she was like, I could date this man, like I could put up with this for a little while just to meet his mom. So she does, and she gets invited to his family's island for Easter, and she gets to this island and it is kind of weird. No one really respects the workers on the island. They're just like, no, don't talk to them, don't be seen associated with them, and certainly do not thank them. And this is obviously the weekend that these servants, they're pretty much indentured servants, have decided to stage a coup, and she is just caught in the middle of all this fucked up shit that this family has done, and it was such a fun little time. And really what sold me in the beginning was, one, The dedication that Delilah S. Dawson puts in is, if you've ever cleaned someone else's dirty toilet, if you've ever been cussed out while working a cash register, if you've ever gotten covered in restaurant trash juice, this one's for you. You deserve a lot more than a book. And then there's a content warning page, which I don't ever hardly read content warnings, so I remember blocking what the content warnings were, but the beginning of this page is, in this book, bad people get what they deserve, and they deserve what they get. There are many unsettling deaths, which I found quite cathartic to write. My publisher has identified the following trigger warnings. And then after all of the trigger warnings, she puts, if you're still in, I sincerely hope you enjoy my little murder book. I very much enjoyed writing it. I gave this 4 stars. I did like Bloom just a little bit better. I thought Bloom had like this really beautiful, my favorite thing is like the tension slowly building over the course of the book. This, like, you hop right into the tension, but it was still such an incredible time, and I do highly recommend this book. The final book I read, which was really the book I started in the beginning of the month and ended with like a day left, is Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle. In this book, we are following our main character, Misha. He is a writer in Hollywood. He's just been nominated for his first Oscar, and he's also finishing writing this show that he has been working on pretty much his whole life. He's been thinking of this idea, and he is ending with these 2 agents madly in love, and they're both women. In the very beginning of this book, Misha gets called into a meeting with the executive of his studio, and he is told that for the algorithm, he needs to kill off his gay characters. And Misha is pretty much like, fuck you, I'm not doing that. We are so over queer tragedy as a selling point for stories, so I'm not going to be contributing to that. And suddenly, every monster that Misha's ever written for a horror movie or show has suddenly come to life and is following him. I really enjoyed this book. I think I enjoyed Camp Damascus a little bit more. I gave this also 3.5 stars. I did kind of have the same issue that I had with Bury Your Gaze, which was, or with Camp Damascus, which was just a little bit of a pacing issue for me. But also, that being said, I should probably reread it before I say that, because the pacing issue simply could have just been that I picked it up on and off for a month. I did, though, really enjoy, obviously, the Oscars are in this. I finished this like 5 days before the Oscars, so that was actually a really fun aspect for me. Okay, but this is my little stack, and these 2 books as well are what I read in the month of February. You know, I didn't really have anything that I hated, so I will take that. Overall, a pretty great reading month. I just wish I read a little more. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you soon with another video.